Let's talk about Toys R Us, and in light of all the recent news that has been popping up and everything, and one day we're talking about the death of Toys R Us in the UK, the next day we're talking about the death of Toys R Us in the United States. Sunday just passed, and there was a lot of people, a lot of my friends were in the States were posting images of like they like almost like going to a funeral. They were
Yeah.
doing their last trip to Toys R Us, and it was very interesting because a lot of my buddies who they had kids, and their kids are still fairly young, like 2, 3 years old. A lot of them were taking their kids there and taking photos with their kids in the aisles just to go like, this is the last run, folks. Just to like say like we were here. It's almost like they give the equivalency for our generation. Like I guess Wendell and me go into like consumers
Oh God,
and
yeah.
taking photos, or alternatively, I mean, we were much older by then, but like even Zellers, but you know,
Consumers
but
still has
say
nothing. Still
consumers
has
when
no
it,
stock
yeah, yeah, we'd just be taking pictures of us with catalogs,
with either catalogs
and
or
and,
just
and,
like
and
empty
small little
racks.
pencils that you find at sushi bars today,
Oh, yeah, it's true.
like there wasn't much, but the point is that so I figured we'd use this opportunity because when the Sunday came, I talked with a friend of mine who lives in Canada, who works at a Toys R Us, and I asked them, please come Monday, let me know what's going on. Like, ask. And so far, everything seems to be doing well. Like, it seems that there's no immediate indication that Canada's Toys R Us's are closing anytime soon.
Mm.
And it's something that I wanted to bring up, number one, before we get into the main discussion, is in the United States, there's, as of, this is the numbers that I have, as of 2016 in the United States, there were 698 Toys R Us's. In Canada, 86. So it's a big. To give you an idea, the following countries have more Toys R Us's than Canada, even. Japan which is a lot smaller than Canada, a lot smaller population, has 161 Toys R Us's. China has 100 Toys R Us's. The United Kingdom, that all their Toys R Us's folded, had 105 Toys R Us's locations. So there's a lot of other countries that have more Toys R Us's than we do. But the difference is Japan's toy market is a lot more plentiful there. There's a lot more options.
Mm.
I don't really know China's market, but that's also where everything comes from. So it's that I can't speak for that one.
All
But
I know, the only thing I would know about China is that their middle class is growing,
yeah,
and
so
they're hungry for
it's
stuff.
kind of yeah. It's and not to mention
And you're
2015.
seeing more. I'm not gonna say oddball stuff, but stuff directed for that market. Remember, there was like, um, there was something that was made for that market, but it was like everyone's like, wait, why are you making that, Hasbro? And it's like, oh, we finally got our own thing, and they're like, they were eating it up. I can't remember if it was a masterpiece. I can't remember if it was a box set. I can't remember what it was. But I guess there's some box sets where it's like, it's the year of X, you know,
Yeah, well, yeah, but
and
it's and it's
and you'll
just
get that
so
kind of
even,
stuff.
and not to mention like this list that I have, it says there's only 100 Toys R Us's in China as of 2015. A lot has changed since 2015 in China.
Yeah.
So who knows what the market is now? But the point is that Canada has a very is not the biggest Toys R Us person, but our market, and we've discussed about this in the past many times, is we don't have as many options. So it looks like Canada and Toys R Us might survive because of how little we have here and how important it is in the big scheme of things over there. So I thought
Right.
I'd use this opportunity to just talk about our first experiences with Toys R Us and memories of Toys R Us, if you will, and like what was the first time you've encountered it, your first opinions of it, and everything, and like the first time you ever went to one and what you thought of it, and especially compared to what else was available at the time. So
Hmm.
jump into that, and then I'll give mine.
Okay. So I think for me, it was around the time that, um, what was it called again? Home Alone 2: Lost in New York came out, and
God, what
the
year
main
was
character
that?
Kevin Mc, yeah, huh?
What year was that? I'm trying to just
90 something,
talk. I'll do the research.
93 or whatever,
Yeah,
or 94, 95. I can't remember. I know it was in elementary school. So,
1992.
all right. And I never been to a Toys R Us yet, but I would see the ads constantly. Don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kids, and then the hip hop version, and then you got Jeffrey and all that. You seen but I've never ever went to one at that point. So the reason I bring up that is because if I remember right, in the movie, the main character Kevin McAllister goes to a toy store, and he's like looks around, and he's gobsmacked by it, and he's like happy. He's like Merry Christmas, Kevin. Like he's saying it to himself.
I believe he went to the FAO Schwartz, which would become Toys R Us Times Square a couple years later. And I believe, again, I haven't seen Home Alone 2, Lost in New York in years, but I believe that's also where the Wet Bandits, or the Sticky Bandits, whatever they wanted to call themselves.
They were the Sticky Bandits at
They
that
were
point.
robbing the FAO Schwartz, and Kevin threw a brick through the window to set off the alarm.
Right,
yeah.
to stop them and then let them chase them into an abandoned place. Yeah. So I remember that, and I remember going to my first Toys R Us, and I'm trying to remember if it was in New York or around Christmas time, or if it was here in Montreal, here in Canada. And I remember I walked in and I saw everything, and I was like, wow, Merry Christmas, Wendell. Like, I was just, again, like, that's what I remember my first time going in there and being surprised about.
Do you remember the first thing that you bought ever?
It could have been a talkback.
Okay.
The talk boy.
Me too. I was kind of, when I get to mine, I was on the fence. It was one of two things, I think.
It could have been the talk boy. I'm really trying to remember but just the amount of toys was there. Like it just rivaled the Sears. It rivaled and Eaton's, if anyone remembers that.
Mm-hmm.
It rivaled Zeller's Toyland, Law of Toyland. What else had toys, man?
Not much.
Yeah, LeBay had its own toy section, but this thing like crushed it. It just destroyed it completely and utterly. And it was just I don't know. It was something that I really liked. It was fun. It was fun to go to, and like you're just looking at everything, and you can be in there for an hour. It wasn't like, oh great, parents are shopping. Oh, I have to stay here next to them. I was like, no, you're with me this time, and I'm taking in everything I can.
Yeah, the whole
now.
store is your store now. It's
exactly.
It's not like you're going to, say, like a department store, and you're going to be in the toy section, and they're going to be in clothing, bags, whatever,
Yeah.
And then they have to come find you afterwards. They're going to have to stick with you because it's all there.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was that. I can't. It could have been that. It could have been maybe a Lego's Explorer set. So remember there was like a spaceship set, and it was like the big one where you lift it up from the ground, and the wings kind of sink.
I wouldn't be surprised if I probably have it.
Yeah, you probably do.
Long story short, I bought a huge Lego collection that I'm sitting on right now from the 80s and 90s. It's
I still
over
have
my
that
head.
Set. I still have that set. Probably don't have the box, but I definitely have the set and the manual for it. But it could have been that, or it could have been something from that line. I'm trying to think, because like I remember kind of going there around Christmas. It wasn't really, I'm going to go there whenever, because it was so out of the way as a kid. You can't just go there by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You had to take a subway and a bus.
Yeah.
Or
well, I'll get into that. I'll even be able to pinpoint how many we had and where they were, and the whole story with that too. But continue.
But I was going to say the first one was probably. It was the first one I probably went to was the one that was closest to Plastiver 2.
Mm-hmm. That was one. Yeah, that was.
I think that was
my first one also.
I think that was the main one I went to, and to think that when we get older, we'd actually have one that's closer to us.
Yeah,
like in the neighborhood.
Years later,
like that's amazing. I think one of the ones I was more partial to was, I guess, the one where you live in your area, because it always feels like they have stuff.
That was the second one. Yeah.
Yeah, the second one, and maybe the one in your Agrignon Mall, like the LaSalle one.
Yeah.
Like that one doesn't seem too bad either. But yeah, lately I've enjoyed actually buying stuff from them. I actually bought a lot a ridiculous amount of Mega Blocks off of them because of their Call of Duty sets.
Hmm.
And one thing that was really cool about those is that the figures articulation was so amazing, and the guns and stuff. And it's just sad that Hasbro does not get these guys just to do a GI Joe set, because everyone does all the GI Joe fans that are buying these Mega Block sets are making them into GI Joes basically.
What would you say was your greatest score, like as a
Oh,
kid or an adult? Like you left Toys R Us and it was like Christmas that day,
oh my
like that. Even if it
goodness.
was one big item or multiple small items.
Oh man, I can't even remember. That's the toughest. That's the tough question. Ooh, okay. It wasn't. Okay. It was going to New York, in the 2000s, and me and Proto Man had just finished Car Robots.
Okay, I know where you're going with this.
We just finished all of Car Robots. So
The Japanese
was it,
version of Robots in
what
the Skies.
was it even subtitled?
No, we were watching TFW 2005. Wasn't even called TFW 2005 at the time. It was called transfandom.org, and they
Hmm.
had the episodes raw, and that's how we were
Yeah,
watching. I think episode 1 was subtitled. That was it.
yeah.
Everything else was
And
raw.
so I go to New York to visit my family during Labor Day weekend, and I have a cousin of mine, an older cousin of mine. I'm like, hey, let's go to the Toys R Us. And he's like, oh, we'll just go to the one where I work at. I think he said he worked at, or another one. We go in, and I'm looking around in the Transformers, like, oh, let's see what's going on over here. And I'm like, what? Robots in disguise? Why is Skybite here? Why is, you know, uh, Fire Convoy here? Why is he called Optimus Prime? Why is God Magnus here? Why is he called Ultra Magnus? Why is the Robot Brothers here? Why is Megatron here? What the heck am I looking at? Or Gigatron, excuse me. So I'm just looking, and so the whole first wave is there. The American first wave is there, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to do. I have my own money. I'm like, I saved up the Christmas money and the birthday money from the previous year, and I brought it with me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness! I'm freaking out because this is the score.
This is
This is the score. This is it.
and years
I'll,
later still considered one of the best Transformer toys of Optimus Prime
and
especially.
Yeah, exactly. And so I couldn't buy everything, obviously. So I had to go for the essentials. And the essentials was Optimus Prime, Ultra Magnus, and the JRX team.
Mm.
And that was the score. So I come back home with the haul, and I leave the boxes as is, and I put them in a big duffel bag. And I think it was the premiere of Robots in Disguise, Car Robots in America, was happening, and I'm going over to Proto Man's place to watch it. And I'm like, I bring over this duffel bag. So what the hell's up with this duffel bag? I was like, open it. And he opens it, and he's like, what?
Yeah. Well,
Oh my
we
goodness,
were
where'd you get this?
yeah, we were really behind in Canada for the release. I remember it was just the leftovers of Beast Machines were just lingering forever because there was
Yeah.
so much Beast Machine stuff. That like it took a bit before Zellers or any of the other places. Like you went to the best place, which was Toys R Us in Times Square.
No, no, it wasn't Times
Well, not
Square.
Times Square, but like
It was just New York
in
in
New York
general.
in general. So it's like
I
that.
can't remember which one it was, but it was not Times Square. I can tell you that
But
much.
you definitely like that was yeah.
That was the score. Now that I think of it, now that I remember, that was the score. I think second best was a present that I got where um, the N64 and the Super Nintendo. No, sorry, N64 and the PlayStation were out, and we're going to cousin's place and playing them there. And my cousin, the same one that worked at Toys R Us, asked me, "Oh, do you have an N64 or a PlayStation?" I said no, and I was like playing his N64. I was playing like whatever he had, like Star Fox, GoldenEye, and Mario 64, just like crazy. And he got me. I think it was around Labor Day. He got me the Toys R Us exclusive N64 that came with a golden controller.
Ah, the gold controller one, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I got that. So that wasn't a score for myself. It was just someone was being super awesome and hooking me up and being like amazing. And just like, oh well, Wendell's a good kid and he totally has a passion for this, and I'm going to feed it. So that was definitely an awesome moment there. And I think that's about it for what I have on my end.
Now,
I think yeah.
for our area, for the longest time here in Montreal, which is the second biggest city in Canada, and pretty much the most happening place to go, in my opinion. Um, we only had three Toys R Us's for a very long time. We had the one that Wendell mentions, Cover 2. We had one in the West Island, and we had one at Agrignon. And the first one ever that was in Montreal was the one at Cover 2. My first memory of that was next to that Toys R Us was a Price Club, or as it's known in Quebec, Club Price. This would, of course, evolve into what we know today as Costco. And Club Price or Price Club back in the day was like an executive, like only the creme de la creme could get membership and access. And so because my mom worked for a private school, she had access to Club Price. But next to that Club Price or Price Club was Toys R Us. And my mom knew if he's walking into there, he's not leaving empty-handed. So I used to beg her because we would just be going to Club Price, and there it is right next door. Like there's that the letters are staring at you like it's walking distance right next door. And I would be like, "Oh, we have to go. We have to go." And I'll never forget the very first time I went to Toys R Us. It was probably, I want to say, like I was looking at the figure that I bought to kind of give me an idea of the year. It was probably 1990. I was about 7 years old, maybe 6.5 at the time, and they just had tons of stock that was completely absent from Zellers, or like they just had stuff that Zellers did not have, that department stores did not have at the time. Zellers being our equivalent of Target at the time for our American listeners. It had all this crazy stuff, and the stuff that was unique to them especially was any Toy Biz Marvel stuff. So like the early X-Men figures, the early Marvel figures, a lot of exclusive toy lines like Mega Man, the Mask, stuff like that, like the oddball figures, and then most importantly out of everything, they were the first places I ever saw wrestling toys. Outside of, let's say, the Hasbro wrestling figures, when Jakks Pacific started doing the wrestling toys for the new generation, with Razor Ramon, Bret Hart, and everybody. They were the first people really to carry that. Before I used to only be able to find that in the States. So that was like, for me, it blew my mind. It blew my mind. It was the only place you would be able to successfully find Power Ranger toys. Like because they were able to have so much floor stock and everything, they were always able to stock a lot more and meet the needs of the demands. And I always loved about going to Toys R Us too because they always had video game displays where you could play the games there. Yeah. So the very first time I played a Virtual Boy was Toys R Us because they had their big displays and everything. The first time I ever laid eyes on the first time I ever messed with a Sega Saturn, same thing, because they would just have these kiosks where you could play stuff. And then even when PC gaming was a big thing, they used to have kiosks too for PC games. Like I remember Sim Town, which was a SimCity game. They would have a TV just with demos to play it. And it was just crazy stuff. And the first thing that I remember buying, and it's a tie between, I either bought Marvel Superheroes Toy Biz Captain America from 1990. And what was cool at the time, and the main reason why I think I pulled the trigger doing that was, at that time I had just seen the live-action Captain America movie, the old one. Not the new one, the bad one. And I was just like,
the one where Captain America steals a guy's car?
Yeah. where Cap at no point was painted in a good way. So I just saw that movie, and I'm like, you know what? I want to pick up a Cap figure. I love Captain America in the comics. I just saw the movie, so I kind of had a bit of a Captain America hype still in me. And I was like, I want to pick up a Cap figure. And Toys R Us was just doing this special where they were they had the Cap figure carded, and they would, there was a baggie just stapled onto the card back with a comic book corresponding to the character. Oh, so you got a Cap, and I still have that comic to this day with Captain America and everything. I still have those figures. And so it was that 1990s cap. It has like the shield that was on, like it also came with a rocket launcher, like a
Mm.
spring load, so you could throw the shield in a way.
Okay.
And I have that shield, and it came with a cap comic too. So that was one, and the other one that I think it's probably the cap predates it by maybe a year or two, but also my very first Mega Man figures,
Mm.
specifically the Ruby Spears Bandai Mega Man figures. And only Toys R Us had those in all of Canada, to my knowledge, because I never would see them anywhere else. And they had them, and I got Mega Man and Gutsman and Bomb Man at the time. And they didn't have any of the others. I really wanted the Proto Man for reasons that don't need to be explained, but they didn't have it at the time. I would get that Proto Man figure years later due to eBay. But just like, those were like some of my first purchases. And that was like, again, 1990. And I mean, those other Toys R Us's to me were almost myths because we would drive by them but never go to them.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
like the one in the West Island, you'd be on the highway and you just see it and you just be like, oh, I want to go. But my parents knew if we're walking in, it's gonna be tough to walk out empty-handed. So I would always get away with that one next to club price because it's like, well, we're here anyways. So I'd go with my dad, who was a big dork just as much as I was. So he'd want to look at the die cast and the stuff there too. Probably my biggest score
Here we go.
was for me. I remember, and it's funny because it was going to go one way and then it ended up being another.
Mm.
Me and my sister.
Say the other, like the other
Oh,
way
the
as
one
the
that was
second
going to be,
one.
well, that's why. It was going to be one
As the
thing, and then
second.
we ended up buying something else. Me and my
Oh,
sister,
okay.
I think between the two of us, we had $200. Like we got money from, I think, an aunt or an uncle or something. We both had a wad of cash. And so me and my sister were like, let's just get something crazy, you know? And we were dumb. We were really dumb. And so me and my sister, we had $200 Canadian between us. And the first thing we were looking at the Power Rangers Power Dome playset.
Mm.
Remember that one?
No,
It was the
no.
playset for the Flip Changer Power Ranger figures.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it had like a hologram of Zordon in there, and it came with an Alpha 5 figure. First, we were looking at that, and we're like, maybe we'll get that, and we'll get a whole bunch of the Flip Changer figures, and this is 90s as hell, a Pog Maker. A Pog Maker, which is you buy and I think it was like $14, and it was just like you put a photo and then you twist it and it cuts the photo in the perfect circle, and then it has a Pog applicator where you have like a whole bunch of blank Pogs with a sticker on it, and then you
Mhm.
just stick the photo onto it. So it was a Pog Maker. You make your own Pogs. I kid you not. It's Canadian as hell because Pog was very big in Canada when it first came out. It was big everywhere in the States too,
Well,
but
when it reappeared.
yeah, when it reappeared in Canada, it was serious business. So we were looking at that, and as we started adding it up and stuff, imagine this Power Ranger playset for your 6-inch,
Morphin playset.
the Mighty Morphin playset. The thing was, I think, like $150 at the time. So when we
Jeez.
started really adding it up, my mom was like, "Oh, you're getting this big piece of plastic with like I think I was going to get a Zach and a Jason, and my sister was going to get a Trini and a Kimberly, and then we were going to get this Pog thing, and it came to like it under $200, but
Mm.
it was just like my mom's like, really, like that's
What a waste.
and even
It would have been a big old waste.
so we pretty much talked ourselves out of it because we were just like, you know
Yeah.
what, you're right, like. This is like it's ridiculous how much it's costing just for the
That
place.
alpha looks pitiful.
Oh,
Ugh.
it's terrible. You're looking it up now.
Yeah, I'm just like,
in,
what
in
is this thing?
retrospective, I ended up never like trying to track it down and then I'm glad I never got it.
Yeah,
But
it's not. It
Power
doesn't
Rangers
look like
was
it's worth it.
huge, and it's just we were blinded by it. But instead, my mom knew that I loved my video games, and my mom seemed very supportive of the Legend of Zelda games because she
Mm.
really liked Link to the Past because at that time you had stuff like Mortal Kombat fighting games and stuff like that, and she saw Zelda as like similar to the Sierra PC adventure games. Use your mind, unlocking puzzles. That's how she saw the Zelda games. So around that time also was the new Zelda game for the Game Boy, Link's Awakening. And Link's Awakening, which I believe at the time was like $39.99. We didn't own a Game Boy in our house, but something else existed around the same time, the Super Game Boy. So me and my sister were like, you know what? Why don't we pool our money together? We could get a Super Game Boy, which was $69.99, I think, at the time. The Zelda game, which is another chunk of money. We'll pool our money together, and we'll have money left over to buy other stuff for later, and we could still get that Pog Maker. Still got to get that Pog Maker.
That Pog
Gotta
Maker,
get that
man.
Pog Maker.
Rubs their hands together.
Hey,
oh
man.
we're gonna wreck.
I made some
shop
Pogs.
against
I took some photos of my pets and made some Pogs out of them. So we ended up.
Did people beat you at Pog and took your pets with them?
No, we didn't play for keepsies. But
Oh, okay.
so we ended up picking up. And it was great because we picked up the Zelda game. We got the Super Game Boy, which I thought that Super Game Boy was probably one of the smartest purchases I ever made, because looking down years later when Pokemon came out, playing with batteries on Pokemon would have been like crazy. But having it to play on your screen and you're leveling up your character, which could be hours and hours of gameplay, no battery lost. It's all done on your screen. It was a good investment. I would not own an actual Game Boy until the Game Boy Color would come out years later. So having the Super Game Boy was very helpful for me for playing games and stuff. And so we bought the Zelda game, and that game got played to death. I still own it to this day, that original copy that I bought. And it was a smart move, thanks to my mom for rolling her eyes at the Power Rangers. And then us going, well, let's not get the toys, let's go with the games. And still getting that Pog Maker. I don't know where that Pog Maker is anymore. I still somewhere.
I still own this. I still own that. I still own this thing. I still own this thing from eBay. That Pog Maker.
I don't know.
Where did it go?
I think my sister probably, maybe it's somewhere tucked away, still has it. Same thing, the blank Pogs with the sticker on the other side to peel off. I do, however, still have some of those Pogs that I made. And there's somewhere I have like a box in my crawl space of like all my childhood stuff that, like, and when I mean childhood stuff, not the stuff that's adult childhood stuff that I still have today. More like, just like little things that I had as a kid that I just have stored away, and I still have those Pogs somewhere stored away, and like of my dog Teddy on a Pog that I had back in the day. So that was one of my memories, and that damn Pog Maker.
Patty better be on a.
Oh, Patty was on a Pog too, but I remember specifically the Teddy, my dog. I live in a house. I lived in a house of many animals, and I had some really awesome dogs. Patty was a mix of picture this in your mind, a pug and a Jack Russell Terrier. Quite the.
It was the front of a Jack Russell Terrier with a tail butt of a dog.
Yeah, of a pug. Quite the we always used to say it was a miniature hyena, because it was the weirdest looking thing in terms of body structure. I wish I had good photos to show, but either way. So point being is that was one of my memories of it, and it's just Toys R Us in Canada has always been very important to us as Canadians, and I mean I have so many memories buying stuff from Toys R Us, whether it be video games or I mean it was just the go-to for a lot of times, because I always felt that while Zellers was such a staple in Canada, it was always such a damn mess. Especially the one near us. Like me and Wendell, we kind of lived a little bit in the hood. Like it was a damn mess. Kids
are terrible, man.
Yeah, you would go to
Tasmanian Devils and hit up that place.
Yeah, you would go to our Zellers, which is like our Target, and it would just be like kids are opening up the damn toys and just leaving them in the aisle. And the workers there were just as apathetic. They just didn't care.
Well, I mean, they had to be. I mean, come on.
Yeah, to work in that area.
All day, you try to make it nice. You know somebody new's working there when it was all nice, and then the magic from their eye was taken away when it was back to a mess.
Yeah, like it was terrible. So going to Toys R Us, which was like crazy stock, a lot of product that was only unique to there, and everything was clean and nicely stocked and everything, and I guess the area that it was in helped too.
Yeah.
It was just such a pleasure to always go there, and I'm like, I really hope that Toys R Us sticks around, because to this day there's just nothing in Canada that even comes close to that kind of stock. So I mean, I had great memories of Toys R Us, and I mean I hope that it continues in our country because it'll always have a place and a positivity in our country. And I
Yeah.
know that Sunday that just passed, I went to Toys R Us just to see if something was going on. Instead, it looked like business as usual. Um, it wasn't crazy crowded, but it wasn't like empty either. And in typical Toys R Us fashion, there was yet another event they were doing. They were doing a Pokemon Sun and Moon Ultra Prism card event where they were handing out posters and kids had pages that they had with coloring crayons and stuff. That's the soul of Toys R Us, in my opinion, is that it's always about fun and events for kids to do, and they're always handing out free stuff for the kids, and that's just totally lost with everyone else and with all the other big companies and stuff. So that's going to be a big thing missing. So I really hope that Toys R Us still has a footing in Canada. But that was just some of our memories. Post your memories. I really want to
Yeah.
know when you became a Toys R Us kid, so to speak. But for me, I think it was 1990, maybe early 91, and yeah, I was like 7.
90s for me.
Yeah,
Probably 5 or
there you go.
something like that. I'm pretty sure.
Cool.